Hello and welcome to today's e-showcase, Building a Potable Water Reuse Solution, Gwinnett County's experience implementing advanced wastewater treatment. I'd like to say thank you to today's sponsor, SUEZ. And now I'm going to hand the presentation over to our moderator, Trevor Dale.
Thank you, Regina. And thank you to everyone for joining us today for the webinar. I'm excited to be hosting this event as we've got some excellent speakers and quite an important and relevant topic for today. Let me start with some introductions. So my name is Trevor Dale. I'm the Global Product Manager for the Ozone product line within SUEZ. And I've been in water treatment for over 10 years now. With me from the SUEZ side, that's Steve Cates. He's the Market Development Manager at SUEZ Water Technologies and Solutions. He has over 17 years of experience in water and wastewater treatment and is focused on the application of SUEZ's various technologies in the world of reuse. From Gwinnett joining us today, we've got Dr. Gayathri Ram Mohan, who is a Senior Research Scientist with Gwinnett County's Department of Water Resources. He has over 10 years of experience in R&D, process engineering, and project management of complex wastewater systems, reuse, and resource recovery projects. And as well, Justin Garmon. So he's the superintendent of Gwinnett County's largest and most advanced water reclamation facility, the Hill WRC Center. So people familiar with this topic of potable water reuse, I'm sure, are very familiar with the Hill facility. He has over 20 years of experience in wastewater treatment, including advanced treatment technologies such as membrane filtration and ozonation. So those are the presenters today. Just a quick introduction to the agenda. Today, Steve will kick us off, introducing the topic of potable reuse, outlining some of the technologies that are the building blocks for this treatment. And then we'll move on more in depth at looking at the reuse journey that Gwinnett has been on with Gaia and Justin. And then, of course, we'll wrap up with a Q&A. And please use the chat function to send us any questions as we go, or at the end when we get to the Q&A section. With that, I'll hand it off to Steve, and he can kick us off.
Thanks a lot, Trevor. Let's grab it. So when we look at the water world today, we're really faced with a broad spectrum of water challenges. We have a climate emergency upon us, population growth, industrialization, urbanization, and all of these have really contributed to our current water reality. As we move forward, it's really my opinion that the recycling of this finite resource will be at the center of how we deal with our water resources going forward. With no new water introduced, we're left to manage our existing freshwater resources. This means that no matter what your utility does with the water it touches, you're still tied to the continuum of water recycling. And this journey is really specific to each of the utilities. That said, decisions that are made today by utilities can help build the foundation for advanced recycling programs down the road. An example of this is really incorporation of membrane processes. They've been the cornerstone of a lot of non-potable recycling programs throughout the years and really create a strong backbone to build on as community needs evolve. And you're seeing the slides move forward, right, Trevor?
Yep, you're all good.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Really what's driving potable recycling is a multitude of different factors. I think one of the big ones is acceptance. I think crisis has really led us to understand that these concepts of having no new water are upon us, and that we are able to safely do this, and the acceptance is growing. Obviously, the scarcity is a huge impact. Having no real other solutions has been a big piece of this. Huge issues with demand growth and the impacts on GDPs of countries and regions based on the inability to have water. Having a resilient means of water is important. Having that freshwater supply diversified and able to be local and sustainable is very key. A big one is also the cost, and I think that the costs of recycling have really been competitive, and you look at other options of augmenting freshwater supplies. And there's an environmental piece where you're looking at the protection of local waterways for uses for freshwater in a community, but also for other environmental purposes and recreational uses as well. When you look at what we're doing, we have the technology today to really treat any quality of water to any end use quality. It's just sort of how we put these elements together and how we build these flow sheets. In the potable reuse world, we're really looking at addressing organics, particulates, nutrient, pathogen, the trace chemicals, and depending on what your source is, some dissolved salts as well. There's a variety of different technologies that can play into these flow sheets, and what we're going to look at today is a very innovative flow sheet that the Gwinnett County team had put together and has been implementing for a number of years. So when we're looking at putting together flow sheets, there's a lot of decisions and elements that come in. You have a starting water quality that differs. You have regional implications that can come in, where you can put your waste streams, how you can extract your waste stream, or how you can extract your water, where it comes from, how you can reuse it within the community, your treatment objectives, your regulatory framework, if it even exists at the time. So what we've seen is over the years, we've built a bunch of different flow sheets, and we continue to innovate from this manner. And I think this is the perfect transition to pass it over to Gaia and let her dig into sort of the history of what was done at Gwinnett County and how that flow sheet was built, and then how they're moving forward with it. So over to you, Gaia.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, I'm the host now.
Yeah, I just passed it, sorry.
Gotcha. Okay, are you all able to see the next slide here?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Stephen, for passing the ball to me. Gwinnett County is the second most populous county in Georgia. Our resident population is close to 1 million. We're pretty sizable utility, and we have 2 drinking water production facilities, 3 water reclamation facilities, and a whole bunch of wastewater pump stations that we have to service and maintain. And this is just a map of Gwinnett County and how, the location of our plants. The 2 drinking water treatment plants up top, Shoal Creek and Linear Filter Plant. And if you see, anybody that's visited Georgia or heard about Lake Lanier is a vast lake. It's got thousands of square miles of area, but less than 4 to 5% of the watershed lies in our county, boundaries, and that's our only drinking water source. So when I say we take care of our lake water quality, we definitely do. With the water reclamation facilities, the 3 water reclamation facilities, Effingham, Yellow River, and Crooked Creek are spread throughout the county. But Effingham is the most advanced and the largest wastewater treatment facility in Gwinnett County, and it serves, more than 50% of the population. And most of the water that's treated at Effingham is put back in Lake Lanier, which, like I mentioned, is also our drinking water source. Like I mentioned, Effingham is a 60 million gallons per day capacity. This plant was built in 2 phases. Originally, it was only a 20 million gallon per day plant, which was completed in 2000. But by the time the plant was completed, by the time construction was completed, the population more than doubled. And so we not only had to go from 20 to 40, but we had to expand from 20 to 60. And that was completed in 2006. And when that expansion happened, when I show you in the next slides the process flow, you'll see the phase 1 process flow and the phase 2 process flow, where we added ultrafiltration membranes. And Effingham actually is one of the world's largest membrane. We do Lake Linear. We practice indirect potable reuse. We treat it to the highest quality possible, specifically because of that reason. And like I mentioned, it also provides treatment, even though it's located towards the north end of the county. We provide treatment to more than 50% of the county's residents. And so every drop of water that enters the plant is pumped to the treatment plant via force mains. This is the simplified version of the process flow for Effingham Water Resources Center. Up front, you have the conventional treatment plant where you have preliminary treatment, screenings, grit removal, primary clarification, and then we have biological treatment where we get both biological nitrogen removal and enhanced biological phosphorus removal. And then following biological treatment, we have secondary clarification. At this point, this is still a conventional treatment plant. Before it goes out from the secondary clarifiers, to recap for a second about our permit, because we do, the 20 mgd worth originally was discharged to the Chattahoochee River, and we got that additional 40 mgd. We got permitted to send it back to Lake Lanier, and our permit, NPDES discharge permit, is pretty stringent. So our phosphorus, effluent phosphorus, is about 0.08 milligrams per liter on a monthly average basis. And so because of that really tight, stringent limit, not only do we have to practice, really good EBPR, but we also polish it with chemical coagulants. We use alum upstream of secondary clarifiers, and we do the first round of chemical polishing. And then following that, when the secondary effluent leaves the clarifiers, it's split into phase 1 up top, where you have the granular media filters, and then phase 2, where you have the ultrafiltration membranes. So we have another cat-safe coagulation, flocculation, settling upstream of these. We add more alum over there, and that's basically making sure you have the safety factor. When it's 0.08, that's next to nothing. So you need to remove all that total phosphorus. So we practice further phosphorus polishing, and then 20 mgd worth of it can go through granular media filters, and the remaining 40 mgd worth of it can be treated through ultrafiltration membranes. And then the effluent from both of these is combined into one before pre-ozonation. Then we pre-ozonate it, put it through biologically activated carbon filtration, and then finally disinfect it using post-ozone, and then we send it out to Lake Lanier. This is a water stream of process. Then you can see how complex it is, because there are different targets we are focusing on along the stream, along the process flow here. There's the total phosphorus, because of which we have this complex stream here. But then we'll also in later slides be talking about how we have a COD limit in place of a CBOD limit, which will be changing in the near future for us. But because we have a COD limit, and pretty much anything that can be biologically removed is removed here, and then you have chemical polishing that aids with a little bit more. Anything that's recalcitrant that comes after this point needs to be treated using a strong oxidant such as ozone before it can be further assimilated using organisms growing on the carbon media. And then finally we disinfect and send it out to Lake Lanier. The sludge side of things, we have anaerobic digestion, before which we thicken, and then after anaerobic digestion we have centrifuge dewatering, and then the cake is disposed of to landfills. And there's more liquid that's produced from the thickening and the dewatering process, which are further, you guys are familiar with nutrient recovery. So you have a stream that's rich in nitrogen, phosphorus, and magnesium. If you don't put it in the right area, it's going to form struvite, which is what happened in the past. And so we built a desired location, we have a Stera nutrient recovery process where we produce a slow release fertilizer and we sell it currently. So that's our simplified process flow over here. Now my superintendent, Justin Garmon, I would like to pass the ball to him to talk in more detail about his experience using operating ultrafiltration membranes. Justin, on to you.
Thank you, Gaia. So our membrane filtration system came online in 2004. Over the years, we've learned a lot and different operational challenges. Originally, we used ferric chloride to at the lamella filters or lamella clarifiers ahead of it, and which fed the water into their membranes. We had the 500 Cs, and we've just now recently installed the 500 Ds. And we're in the process of starting another project to add more membranes to the system and get more out of the building. We've got a lot of life out of our old 500 Cs. They were installed in 2004, and we just got through replacing them all last year, or in the first of this year. So, instead of replacing all of them at one time, we did some enhanced cleanings and got some more life out of them. And we tried different chemicals to remove the fouling, and we found that the zorbic acid did the best when we heated it up. And as you can see from the pictures on the slides, there was all iron fouling, and we removed the iron fouling after that and got a lot more life out of them. And then the biggest issue we had with the fibers themselves wasn't the hollow fibers, it was actual potting from overexposure, exposure to the chlorine in the water and stuff. So the noodles were still good, it was the potting that held it all together. We actually just was awarded the patent for the cleaning of the membranes, and we saved time and money by extending the life some on it up to 17 years versus 10 years, which is the normal standard. Sorry. We also swapped over recently in the last couple of years from ferric chloride to alum. We saw a great benefit from doing that as well, because iron is so bad on the membranes that the alum, we've seen a lot of benefits from using the alum over the ferric. Pass it back to Gaia now.
Thank you, Justin. And just to go a little bit over what was done, in this study, we had severe fouling on the membranes, and that was particularly because of use of ferric chloride upstream of the membranes, which we did do a characterization of the fouling, and the fibers you see to your right, the one on the top that looks purple is a virgin fiber that has nothing on it. And then the one that's covered in green, that's all that you see over there. The green spots are all iron that was found using the elemental imaging that was performed by a third party, Avista. So we built, in partnership with them, we built single module fibers, which we then did permeability testing on by cleaning them with what the industry standard is using citric acid for iron fouling, right, to remove it because it chelates pretty well. But that was not sufficient at this point, because even in spite of hypo and citric cleans that we had done, we still saw some irreversible fouling. And so we tried ascorbic acid, SPS, and Avista 127 at different temperatures and different exposure times. And we were able to find the ideal one that helped, get rid of that fouling. So it definitely helped. It bought us some time. That helped us make a decision on which way we had to go with replacing those membranes, and we found that updating ourselves, upgrading from 500Cs to 500D is certainly helped us. And like Justin mentioned, we were able to add more membrane surface area and reduce the flux, which gives us some leeway, and talking about designing for the future, it gives us some leeway. So if in the future we see, increased flows, we'll still be able to, deal with those with the existing membrane setup. And the benefits are summarized over here. We did get about 34% increase in permeability across all the trains. By the time the bend scale trials were done, we got the results. We implemented them in full scale. We used dip tanks that we have. That's definitely been, I'm sure Justin loves having those dip tanks. We were able to isolate those cassettes, modules, put them separately in dip tanks from each train. We were able to clean them and put them back in. It added about 4.4 billion gallons of additional production and a lot of energy savings. So it extended the years, from an industry standard 10 years, we got another 7 years, which certainly has helped us in planning our capital improvement project and, phasing out, because these are not cheap projects, right? There's several $1 million involved in them. So it definitely helped us make the right choice. And now we've replaced our original 500Cs with 500D ZWEED membranes. That was a little bit of brief on how, we practice advanced treatment at Gwinnett County using ultrafiltration membranes. And I would like to now touch a little bit on ozone application at Gwinnett County. We do ozonate it 3 times, like you can see in this slide. So you can take it for granted that Gwinnett County loves ozone. So once the conventional treatment is done and the advanced treatment, once it enters the advanced treatment, and you have that combined effluent from phase 1 and phase 2, we pre-ozonate it, and you can see how the COD limit is 18 milligrams per liter, total phosphorus permit is 0.08, ammonia of 0.4, TSS of 3 milligrams per liter, and turbidity of 0.5 NTU. So we have a pretty, pretty much anybody that's toured Effingham, we would show you a beaker of water, and if you didn't know it was Effingham effluent, just from looking at it, it would be really hard to tell there was, wastewater that by the time it comes in from influent pump stations, and then by the time it gets out of the effluent, it's so clean because it's, undergone such high degree of treatment. So by the time it gets out to that pre-ozone section, it's basically, think about, all the recalcitrant long chain complex molecules that have to be broken down. So it's easy enough for the microorganisms growing on activated carbon to assimilate. Because if you thought about it, if you didn't have pre-ozone, what we would have been doing, like originally planned, was we would have had GAC contactors, and we would have had to spend lots of money replacing the GAC every year, or twice a year. And as they got exhausted, we would have to get rid of them and then replace them again. And that's neither is it economic, nor is it, in terms of capital projects and operations, it's going to cost a lot of process interruption, right? So instead, what we did was we passively let the GAC acclimate and become BAC. And by treating it using pre-ozone upstream of BAC, we're able to bombard those complex organics with a strong oxidant such as ozone and break it down enough so it's easy for the bugs to, for the microorganisms growing on the carbon media to assimilate. And that's certainly been helpful for us. We've been able to consistently get a COD, it averages about 10 to 12 milligrams per liter on the effluent coming out of the BAC process. And the second time we post-ozonate, because that's primarily for disinfection, and by the time it's disinfected, right? So even though our design capacity flows 60 mgd, our current day annual average is about 35 to 40 mgd. And since our permit allows us to put that back to Lake Lanier, we've been putting all of the treated water back in Lake Lanier in present day situation, even though we have the capability to send part of it to the Chattahoochee River. And like you can see in the bottom part of that process flow, and the figure on the right over here, where we discharge into Lake Lanier versus where our raw water intake for the Shoal Creek filter plant is less than a mile apart. And of course, the Effingham discharge diffuser is way deep down in Lake Lanier, while the raw water intake isn't all the way down there. But what I'm trying to point out here is it's basically just the environmental buffer, that we are practicing in current day indirect potable reuse versus what would happen in the future if there is, like Stephen mentioned, this is not an infinite source, right? Potable water or water source. And so, if in the future we were to go to a DPR scenario, and thinking about that, we Denise Funk was a principal investigator on a WRF 4777 WRF 1511 project. This is when we actually tested two different trains. One was just mimicking our drinking water plant with pre-ozonation, coagulation, flocculation, followed by biofiltration. And then the other one, in that one where we just tested direct lake water, and then in a parallel pilot, that was a DPR pilot, we actually tested various blends or ratios of Effingham effluent combined with raw lake water. We tested all the way from 15% blend, 25%, 50%, and 100%, which was 15% Effingham, remaining lake water, or 25% Effingham effluent, remaining lake water, 50% Effingham effluent, remaining lake water, and 100% Effingham effluent. It was more than a year-long operation of the pilot. We got some really useful data out of it. That only the 50% blend met all the primary and secondary MCLs for drinking water. Only about 3 of those out of the 300 plus analytes we analyzed we saw some exceedances, along those lines in the higher blend ratios that we tested. But primarily what we found, two interesting things were, one, for an inland utility such as Gwinnett County, where the brine disposal is going to be pretty expensive, an alternate, treatment mechanism that's just as robust as an MFRO process. The ozone BAF proved to be really good in terms of removing most of those analytes, most of those contaminants. And the other one we noticed was during change in seasons, right? When the temperature changes, the lake water quality changes because the epilumnion tends to change. And as your raw water is pulling more from the bottom and there's some sludge that's getting mixed up in the bottom end, the lake linear water quality is great to begin with. You get less than 1 NTU turbidity to begin with. But when you have those disturbances, lake turnover, you tend to see the lake water quality get disturbed a little bit, which requires further adjustment in the full-scale plant, in the drinking water treatment plant, or we have to adjust our chemical doses and ozone dose. What was interesting is that Effingham doesn't do that, right? Effingham treatment plant produces pretty much the same steady state quality water throughout the year. And so when they were noticing these effects in full scale from the lake water quality changing, the DPR pilot had no disturbance. It pretty much continued on, as is. And that showed us that DPR may actually, work in our benefit in some of those scenarios. And it also in terms of economics, there was this economic study that was done as a part of this pilot, and it was shown that an ozone BAC process or BAF process would probably be half the cost of what it would cost you with an RO MFRO sort of system. So that's that was a really interesting pilot that also won several awards. And like I mentioned, Denise, who was with Gwinnett County at that point, was a principal investigator of this one. And then I just wanted to touch a little bit on the ozone evolution of ozone at Effingham. The original installation was in 1999. We had 3 Ozonia OF28L ozone generators. They were rated for 900 pounds per day at 8% ozone concentration. And then when we expanded the plant in 2004, we added 2 more. And then we segregated them as, few for pre-ozone, and then the 3 for pre-ozone and the 2 for post-ozone. And then in 2014, we did further upgrades to power and control equipment, as well as process equipment. And as recent as 2020, 2021, we've had some more ozone upgrades in terms of hardware and, changed. We had the side stream injection with downflow tubes. And now we've gone to a multiple manifold system for ozone diffusion. So we've certainly tried to keep up with advancement in ozone, and the generators we deal with have been definitely reliable, and we've had pretty good experience with those. And I wanted to briefly touch on this again with the advanced treatment scheme of things. Again, you're just focusing on pre-ozonation and biologically activated carbon filtration. Like I mentioned, what would happen is, you'd have filter cells where you would, basically add virgin GAC, and then virgin GAC would eventually, once it runs out, once it's exhausted and runs out of absorption capacity, it would, passively transform into a BAC. And one interesting scenario that happened to us in full scale recently was we filled 6 cells worth of virgin GAC. And once those were exhausted, we noticed that we were getting, instead of them, just passively, without there being a gap in transformation, we were thinking we would just continue to get good water quality. And we noticed elevated organics, during right after like 4 to 5 months of installation, which is indicative of when it was exhausted, the absorptive capacity was exhausted. And so now we have started, we got funded for a WRF project, Water Research Foundation project, where I'm the principal investigator. We're trying to understand and improve reuse biofilter performance, because if you look at it, biofiltration has been definitely studied in depth, and there's a lot of monitoring tools and material available for the water world. But now that we live in a one water world and potable reuse is being more, there's more awareness, there's more interest in going that way, and that's the future of water industry. And so we're trying to better understand what happens when this transformation occurs from GAC to BAC. We separated this out into pilot and full scale. We have tested some seeding strategies using concentrated activated sludge, also different blend ratios of previously acclimated carbon. We've got some really interesting results in pilot scale. And our end goal with this project is basically to develop guidance for utilities that are employing biofiltration, and hopefully, not just passive biofiltration, but engineered biofiltration and reuse applications. How do you circumvent such issues? How do you not see, a gap in acclimation? And how do you allow your filters to operate in steady state throughout? And like I mentioned, the pilot trial is completed. We are going to be beginning our year-long full-scale trial this month. And that's the project link for anybody that's interested in keeping track of updates and results from those. With that, I would like to pass it back to Trevor, and we'll answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Gaia. And thank you, Justin and Steve. So coming to the end of the prepared presentation, question and answer time. So like I said at the beginning, please direct any questions into the chat. You can send them to all panelists, and then we can take them from there. So there's been a couple come in, and we'll start there. But again, feel free to type some more into the chat window, and we'll get to them as we go here. So let's just take a look. Maybe let's go to Justin. I'd say probably a question for you. It's a question around, I guess, the difficulties, the challenges, and how you navigate operating, continuing the plant operations while you have clearly had full-scale plant upgrades going on. So these capital investments in the plant. Maybe give some color to that question.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I find is finding the right people to work with. It's more of a team. I don't run this plant by myself. I have a team of people that work for the county, people that work for consulting firms, and the contractors. So I try to build a team relationship. And if there's an issue, let's figure out the solution to it instead of trying to point fingers. If you take the teamwork mentality, I can't be successful unless everybody's successful. Then navigating all that is a lot easier. I mean, the Gwinnett County does a great job supporting all of us, and the plant has a lot of redundancy and the capabilities. And we're very fortunate we have EQ tanks on site, immersion storage tanks on site, and off-spec tanks on site. So with all the water being pumped to us and pumped out of us, we can divert flow and do shutdowns with minimal issues.
Great. No, thank you. No, it's definitely definitely key. All right. Maybe one for you, Gaia. About ever-changing regulations. So as you see, regulations change, discharge limits changing, obviously becoming more strict. How, in your mind, how do you design for the future, for in the future of wastewater treatment?
Yeah, that's a great question. We all wish we had a crystal ball, right? We all wish we could see the future and design for it. I think it's mainly just, for us, it's not just operating. I don't think we operate just as a conventional treatment plant. Like Justin mentioned, the strong team, having research as a part of the utilities focus. We have the Water Innovation Center, the water tower being built. We're always looking at robust technologies, having treatment technologies such as membranes that are, capable of doing a lot more than is required. Having treatment technologies such as ozone, those certainly help. And also knowing your water, your systems, and your treatment process better than anyone else. So, also playing in the national studies, doing our own internal research and staying abreast of the regulatory environment. We started collecting information on PFAS and other similar regulatory, changes that we are expecting in the future ahead of, when somebody's going to knock on our door and say, oh, give us your, tell us what's going on, give us your data. And we don't like to be blindsided, right? So preparing for the future, having robust treatment schemes, I think certainly that's the way to go.
Great, thank you. And maybe a bit to follow on in that, one of the questions that came in is DPR for now or for the future? And I know you evaluated it in the pilot studies in the past, but where do you envision that going for Gwinnett?
So I'll answer it in a simple way. So Effingham produces about 40 mgd worth of treated effluent, right? And our drinking water treatment plants, the two treatment plants, one is design capacity of 98 mgd and the other one is about 150 mgd. And so Effingham effluent will not be sufficient for DPR, but it can certainly help with supplementing. We don't currently have any plans to do that, but this was, again, planning for the future, when, if and when that time comes, like Steve mentioned, the limitation on how much raw water is available to us, right? So if and when that time comes, we would certainly be prepared. So DPR for future, but we conducted a study, so we would have all the answers in place.
Gotcha. And maybe Steve, I'll open it more broadly to you, but same question in terms of DPR is for now or for the future?
Listen, I think it is the next stage of where we're moving in this world, and I'm going to say it's for now because we can do it safely and we have the technology to make it happen. Projects and programs that are moving in that direction are in the stages of demonstration, and moving towards that to ensure that the public acceptance piece of it comes along with it. But I think we're there, and I think we're going to need to move in that direction, Trevor.
Fair enough. I agree. There's going to be the need, clearly, and it's a matter of where it comes first, and the technologies, like you say, are there. It's a matter of putting them together, and clearly a fair amount of public acceptance around it. And so we do have a question on public acceptance. So maybe for Gaia, with the implementation of indirect here through Lake Lanier, how is the public awareness and acceptance, and how do you ensure that you're getting the clear and concise communications out around this topic? Because it's, public awareness is key when we talk about the, potable reuse in general.
No, absolutely, yeah. I would say one thing that Justin loves to do as a part of his role here is he gives fantastic tours. So if anybody is ever interested in touring Effingham, you should definitely take one when you're here in the area. And we engage the public. Having transparency and making them feel like we're ready to share everything we do. And we're doing this to make sure that we are basically frontline for protecting public health and the environment, right? And we're very proud of it. And so we definitely take our jobs pretty seriously. And so, engaging them, showing them what is happening at the treatment plant, communicating with them, is definitely a big piece of it. Justin's given tours all the way from, elementary school, middle school, high school, to on the other end, global visitors. We have research professionals from all over the world who like to, come and visit our plant and talk to us about how we operate it. So definitely, sharing what we do and, engaging them is a big part of that, answer. But also I would say public today is certainly more aware. There's definitely pluses and minuses to internet and Google, right? So they're more aware, and when we show them our treated effluent, some folks are quick to jump and say, hey, can I taste it? And we're like, no, don't taste it. We do treat it to high quality. So I think public mindset is already there. They're more aware now. They are keeping up with scientific advancement, and so I think they're just making our jobs easier.
Good, yeah, and we don't say the world-renowned Effingham Hill facility for no reason. Like you say, I know you do get visitors from around the world, very interested in all the work you've done over time. Let's see, maybe a question. Let's see, maybe Justin, is the GAC regenerated, or do you always use virgin carbon?
So when we first brought GAC online, we regenerated it one time, but since then, Guy and I's worked a lot together, and when we had to buy new media, we buy virgin, and then working on a seeding process because it takes time from the transition between activated carbon to biologically activated carbon, and we're doing a lot of research with that right now.
Good, thank you. And another process question here around the wastewater treatment monitoring of total dissolved solids up and downstream of the filtration process. And so how effective is the filtration process at removing, I think, suspended solids? Like the question actually says dissolved solids, but I suspect it should be to suspended solids.
Yeah, we don't really have any. We're not in a place like Arizona or somewhere. We don't really have high TDS, right? So our TSS, it's pretty good. Both all the way from GMF down. Of course, membrane effluent quality is way superior than what we get out of GMF, but it still meets. It helps us meet permit. And with BAC, we get pretty low turbidities, less than 0.5, 0.1 to 0.2 NTUs coming out of those. So TSS target of 3 milligrams per liter, we meet that pretty comfortably.
Excellent, thank you. Maybe Steve, going back to a little broader question for you. Ozone and BAF, or biological filtration as a kind of treatment step. Just where is it now in terms of potable reuse? Where is it being implemented, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, so I think that we just saw how valuable of a tool it is for trace chemical reductions in terms of its ability to robustly reduce that and to reduce some of that TOC from that stream. I think that, as Gaia mentioned earlier in her presentation, the drinking water world has seen the use of biofiltration a lot, but now we're looking at it for a slightly different application. So I think that projects like Gwinnett, filling some of these knowledge gaps, is really opening it up for other uses. The places, to answer your question, that we're seeing this is really in inland schemes where things like RO brine are very difficult to dispose of. So the Southwest US, and then we're also seeing a lot of it on the East Coast of the US as well, with several of these schemes being implemented where dealing with RO brine can be a significant challenge. And obviously within these schemes, we need to address the chemical constituents and the TOC reduction. So those are the main spots we're seeing it. And I guess the third piece is the new DPR regulations that are under development in California. And the base process scheme there involves the ozone and biofiltration process is a key element to that process for pathogen and chemical reduction in the flow sheets.
Great, thank you. Let's see, another one, I guess, for the Gwinnett team. Looking at the ozone, and specifically, were you able to determine a relationship between the ozone dosage and the removal, I guess, the COD removal specifically, but basically trying to get an estimate of the BOD formed as you vary the ozone dosage?
I can take that, Justin, if you're okay with it. So we certainly track ozone to TOC ratio. Like I mentioned, up now we do not have a BOD limit, so we mainly our permit tracking, downstream has been based on COD. But that said, we've certainly monitored. We have final effluent CBOD numbers after that process, and we get about across the ozone BAC process, we get about 0.2 to 0.3 milligrams per liter removal of BOD. If that
have you looked at the dosage of ozone and its impact on COD across the process?
Yeah. So ozone itself, it's only going to transform the compounds, right? It's not going to reduce your overall COD, which BOD is within that umbrella, right? So TOC, COD will not change. You're just ozonating, as in you're changing the form of, the molecules from complex to broken down. So the carbon chain, the number of carbons are still remaining pretty much the same, right? It's across the BAC after pre-ozonation that you will start seeing the reduction in organics. And when we've tested all the way from, I would say, 0.2 to 1 ozone to TOC ratio, and we've had pretty good success. We've had as high as 30 to 40% organics removal across the ozone BAC system.
That's interesting. Thank you. Got a few more questions. Let's see, I think we still have a couple minutes before we wrap up. Maybe for Justin, in terms of the unit processes, what has been the most challenging for operations from your, I guess, your advanced water treatment processes you have?
So, to me, the hardest thing is to keep the BIOP under control on our top end of the plant, our regular wastewater treatment plant. On our bioreactors, we only dose like 5 milligrams to 10 milligrams of alum in there because we have the wash strip. So keeping everything running well and our recycles under control on that part of the plant. But on the bottom end of the plant, ozone, I've operated plants with ozone. I've operated plants with UV and chlorine. I love operating the ozone because you got a residual. You don't have to store chlorine gas, change that cylinder. So overall, ozone is easy to operate, I feel like, and it's does a great job. The biggest thing with membranes is just doing what you're supposed to, working with SUEZ, troubleshooting things, watching your TMPs and keeping your coagulants where you need them before water feeding into membranes. Is just do what you're supposed to do and keep an eye on your membrane system.
All right, great. Well, thanks for that, Justin. All right, well, with that, we should wrap up here. So I will thank the presenters today. So obviously, Justin, Gaia, Steve, greatly appreciate you sharing us the insights, both in the presentation and answering the questions. And for those questions we didn't get to, we can get some answers out, hopefully directly to you in a follow-up answer document. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Thank you, Regina, and all participants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, this was great. And I also would like to thank you, our presenters, for such a great presentation, and to thank our sponsor, SUEZ, for sponsoring today's event. This actually concludes today's e-showcase. Thank you all for attending. The recording will be available at webfiresguide.web.org. We will send all registrants an email tomorrow with that link. And please visit our event calendar to sign up for future events.